Um, well, let me pull this over here. And just want to welcome everyone to WSN Men Live. My name is Chris Bentley. We haven't met before. It's my pleasure to be with you tonight. I am the managing director of Widower Support Network, and I'm so grateful that you've joined us tonight. Just a couple of housekeeping notes. We are recording, as you just heard. If you prefer to keep your cameras off because of that, that's completely okay. I do request to keep your mics muted in case we've got some stray dogs, joining you tonight. But we'll have plenty of time for Q&A, and we can unmute them. I think if you've been here before, we encourage engagement, we encourage questions. There's never a dumb question. I have the chat pulled up. You have access to that as well. You can send any questions, thoughts, comments. Just load them up, and we'll get to them. Okay. So that's important. That we're here for you. You're not here for us. We're here for you. And so if you have questions or things on your mind, ideas you want to toss around, this is the time to do it. We've got an hour tonight. If we don't use it all, that's fine, but this is your time. So thanks for being here. And I'm really, it's my privilege really to introduce Grant Meyer to you. He's a certified financial planner and has a lot of other letters behind his name. He's also a certified grief educator, and frankly, one of the most dedicated advocates for widows and widowers in our community. Grant began his career in financial planning in 2008, and he spent years helping people navigate not only financial decisions, but many of life's biggest transitions. Since 2021, that season, he's been a volunteer with Wings for Widows, which I founded. I'm the executive director for, as well as being here with you with WSN. And he's been supporting widows and widowers through, one-on-one coaching, educational programs, grief-related outreach. He's been involved in everything that I've ever asked Grant to be involved with, and that's why he's here tonight. In 2022, I think I had the year right, he was recognized as our Wings for Widows Coach of the Year. So it's just a pleasure to know Grant and have him here. Beyond his professional work, Grant's a husband, a father, a runner, and a lifelong student, I would say, of personal growth and well-being. Tonight, he's going to be sharing insights from both his professional experience and his work as a certified grief educator as we discuss health, wellness, and resilience after loss. So please join me in welcoming Grant. And Grant, I will turn it over to you, sir.
Thanks so much, Chris. And thanks everyone who is on the webinar tonight or who is going to be streaming this recording after the fact. Thanks so much for tuning in. As Chris mentioned, so my primary job is a financial advisor, and that's what I've been doing for the better part of a couple decades, and very heavily involved in the grief community. I speak a lot locally and nationally through webinars, but then also very passionate about just overall, how can I be a better me? How can I help the world more? How can I improve my health, wellness, fitness, mindset so that I can have a larger impact on the world? And what I'm going to be talking about tonight is really the intersection of these two things, overall wellness and health, and just feeling better, being a better you, whatever that means for whatever place you're in right now on your grief journey, and the impact of grief on our well-being. And my goal tonight is to give you a bunch of information, but that's very approachable. So we're not going to be doing anything super complex. This is going to be nice and approachable steps. My goal was to figure out what are one or two things on each of these topics that anybody can do right now to get some sort of benefit or see some sort of benefit in their lives. And so we're going to walk through a little bit on mindset, a little bit on hydration, a little bit on movement, and you name it, we're going to cover it, and hopefully you get some really good bits of wisdom out of tonight's presentation. So my pleasure to be here. You should see my screen and my slides in Zoom.
Hey, Grant, are we going to have to do any push-ups tonight? The guys were asking.
You do leave here with a six pack automatically by just listening to me. It's amazing. Guaranteed. But no push-ups involved. No push-ups involved at all.
I guess it's up to you guys if want to do that.
Yes. So first and foremost, I just want to acknowledge that grief, impacts us not only emotionally, but physically as well. And letting our wellness or health or physical fitness or whatever it is, deteriorate when we just lost our spouse, it's natural. It's not a flaw that you have in particular. It's not a character flaw. It's not a failure. It's a normal part of the grief process, and grief consumes our emotional bandwidth, our cognitive bandwidth. And tonight's goal, again, is to not overwhelm you, not add to a to-do list, but rather point out what's readily available to you in ways that you could improve your overall health and well-being. And grief, not only is an emotional process, it impacts us physically and our health and well-being directly. About 60% of widows and widowers report some new health event within the first year of the loss of their spouse. Men in particular were 27% more likely to die or have increased cause of mortality once we're widowed compared to our married counterparts. And grief exhausts us emotionally, physically. There's lots of logistics, settling the estate, dealing with all the number stuff, the change in social structure. And many men were caregivers. We put our kids and our wives and everyone first, and we diminish our own needs and our own well-being. We're expected societally, right, to stay strong and still function in spite of going through the loss of our spouse. About half of people that lose their spouse experience insomnia. That is severe lack of sleep and being able to fall asleep. Um, a surprising and startling factoid. Within the first 24 hours, we're at a 21 times greater risk of experiencing a heart attack. It's something called a Takotsubo cardiomyopathy. Sorry if I butchered that for any doctors listening, but basically broken heart syndrome. The emotional toll of losing our spouse can be so overwhelming, it can actually stop our heart. There are about half of widows or widowers that report loss of appetite, change of appetites, less appealing to food, digestive issues. And so it's no wonder if we're under all this stress, not sleeping, not eating well, our immune system gets impacted as well. Inflation rises if we have pre-existing conditions that can worsen, or we can develop new conditions. So the physical manifestation of grief, it's real. And before we dive into some of these things on how we can improve our physical well-being and help our grief journey, first and foremost, we need to give ourselves permission. And just know that by healing and getting better, it's not betraying the loss of your spouse. It's not betraying your grief. Taking care of yourself is not moving on. It's staying in the fight. As men, we often like to fix things or solve things. We view things in the lens of a problem that we need to engineer our way out of. We don't need to do that with our grief. We don't have to fix our grief before getting healthier. And in fact, working on our bodies, working on our physical bodies and on our minds can actually make our grief journey easier to go through, more impactful. We can heal better, and we can be there for the loved ones that are still with us, kids, grandkids, friends, family members. And it's really the small steps done consistently over time that are going to make a big impact and add up. And when we're grieving, it's really difficult. I mean, even when we're not grieving, heck, just normal everyday life, it's difficult to stay motivated. It's difficult to will ourselves to consistently do things. Naturally, we're going to want to just stay sedentary, stay comfort. We're not going to want that discomfort or creating new routines or doing new things. So it's difficult when we're grieving to rely upon internally motivating ourselves, pulling ourselves up by the bootstraps. Rather, what I want you to try to focus on is creating routine. A new routine is going to be a lifeline. And grief can make time feel a little bit more fluid or shapeless. And we lose some of the scaffolding, the structure of our everyday routine when we lose our spouse. Um, and creating a routine doesn't mean we need to be productive, but rather it's just trying to add some method for us to stick with something to then help us work through our grief journey, improve our fitness, or whatever goal you have in mind. The goal may be to get back in shape, or it may just be getting out of the house and getting dressed, or going back into society, into a social circle, wherever you're at in your grief journey, can vary widely. But a routine can be a very useful tool rather than relying upon sheer will. So routines are going to be your best friend. Um, a very useful concept is thinking of push versus pull. I like to think of motivation as we have to push ourselves to do something, but routine is a pull. It pulls us to do it, whether that is morning coffee with a friend at the same time, or a walk in the evening at the same time, or we'll talk about some other wonderful habits and routines to set up. But routines are going to be the method in which we can stack some of these good things in to help us achieve it. Now, when I was putting this presentation together, I was thinking through all of the different things, exercise/movement, food, friendship, community, spirituality, trying to figure out what's one thing, where am I going to start on what people should work on. And after some soul searching, some reading, here's my number one thing that I'm going to start with is sleep. Now, half of us, when we lose our spouse, potentially experience some sort of insomnia. This on the slide will not fix insomnia. That is best dealt with by a sleep expert. Know that there are doctors out there that specialize in sleep and that can help you with that. But if you are not one of the people that struggles with insomnia, but perhaps just sleeplessness or struggle with sleep in general, there's some good tips, some common, easy things that anyone can do to help improve our sleep. And why is sleep so important? You know, there's so many different things that sleep does for us, but one of the interesting things that I just pulled up as a quick analogy is if you have gone without sleep for 17 to 18 hours, your cognitive function is similar to people that have a blood alcohol content or concentration of around 0.05. And if you've been awake for 20 to 24 hours, it is similar to that of a person with a blood alcohol content of maybe as high as zero point 0.1, which is over the legal limit to drive. So think about that. You couldn't drive and operate a motor vehicle with that much alcohol in your system. Yet if you're sleep deprived, you can go out there and you can drive, you can go to work, you can try to parent, you can try to be a grandparent wherever you are in your phase of life. And so just imagine, I think all of us at some point in our time potentially recall what it's like to feel inebriated when you've had a couple of drinks, and sleep impairment does that, but it's a little bit more insidious, and that it's not, you don't have all the signs and symptoms, but your cognitive ability to react and think and process and problem solve, regulate emotion is severely impacted by lack of sleep. So what can we do to help? There's some easy things. I threw together 5 on this slide. Consistent sleep and wake times. Wake up at the same time, go to bed at the same time, no matter the season, even if it's hard, stay consistent. It helps our internal clocks, our circadian rhythm, stay in alignment, and it's going to improve sleep. Don't scroll on your phone, don't watch TV, don't do tablets, ideally an hour before our bedtime. Some studies maybe even show about an hour and a half to 2 hours. Before bed, we want to mimic darkness Prior to having electricity, our ancestors, when the sun went down, we went to sleep. When the sun came up, we woke up, and that's how our circadian rhythm was built by all these years of evolution. And only recently now, with electricity, can we modify that. But what we want to try to do is mimic that natural rhythm of the sun. So when the sun is setting, we want to lower lights. We don't want to be looking at screens. When we fall asleep, an ideal condition in our bedroom is cold and dark. We don't want light in there. Light blocking shades are a huge deal. In the summertime, run that air conditioning if you have it. There's some studies that show between 65 and 67 degrees, which some people consider pretty cold, to be an ideal sleeping temperature. Certainly, once we start to drift above into the 70s, that can impact the deepness of our sleep. We really want to avoid alcohol as a sleep aid. It may help us fall asleep, but it disrupts some of the most important parts of our sleep that make us feel rested and help our brain recover. When we sleep, what's going on behind the scenes, many different things, but they actually have pictures of fluid moving in and out, washing over your brain, pulling out all these proteins and junk and garbage, and that flows back into our body, and our kidneys clean it out and everything. That clean out process of sleep is so vital. And when we drink, we can disrupt some of those processes. And then when we wake up, just like when we're going to sleep, we want it dark. When we wake up, we want it to be light. We want as much light as we possibly can in the morning. Going outside and getting sun exposure early in the morning is the best. But if it's winter, I'm in Minnesota. In the winter in the morning, there's no sunlight. So using daylight lamps can be extremely beneficial. The more light you get, it goes in through your eyes, hits your brain, and tells your circadian rhythm, hey, we got to be awake. It drops your melatonin, it boosts your cortisol, it gets you going for the day. So remembering to mimic the natural sun movement can be really important for adjusting our sleep. I love podcasts. I love learning. Um, One particularly useful and approachable podcast, if you're interested on some of this data and science aspect of sleep, there's a podcast called The Diary of a CEO. And there's a particular doctor whose whole career and expertise is sleep medicine. His name is Dr. Matthew Walker. There's a recent episode, maybe 3, 4 months ago, so I think sometime within 2026, that I would look up. And then he also did one a couple years ago as well. But anything by Dr. Matthew Walker is generally something that's very worthwhile to check out. After sleep, an important part of our overall well-being is going to be movement. And I didn't say exercise. This isn't a boot camp here where I'm going to whip you into shape. I'm not a drill instructor. I want you to think about movement as hygiene. Ideally, you wouldn't go months without brushing your teeth. You wouldn't go months without showering or putting on deodorant. You wouldn't go months without changing your clothes or combing your hair. But you might go months without moving or exercising in a structured way. And I want us to start to think about movement as another hygiene that we should continue to do. And movement has so many wonderful impacts. They've done studies that have shown that movement and exercise is about 1.5 times more effective at reducing depression and anxiety than medication and therapy alone. So therapy and medication certainly have their place, but movement in some way, shape, or form should be in everyone's life. It doesn't require a gym. You don't have to have a goal necessarily. Those things can help, but really just any sort of movement will release endorphins, which those are the feel-good chemicals. We get them when we laugh, when we eat really good food. It helps us regulate our mood. And even something as simple as a 10-minute walk can be genuinely useful if done consistently. Um, I think that a lot of men, maybe not all of them, have this connotation of, gee, if it's not hard, if I'm not straining, if I'm not, physically stressing my body out by lifting something heavy or pushing my body to the limits, that's not exercise. It doesn't count. That couldn't be further from the truth. Intensity is not necessarily as impactful as consistency. And finding a friend that can go with you can be very helpful. I'm a financial advisor, so I have to show you at least one chart. It's kind of a creed is something we have to do. So I grabbed this slide here. I'm going to zoom in. So what this is, I'm just going to geek out with you for 1 second here. This is different exercises are these different colors. And on the bottom is duration per week. So 5 would be 5 hours a week. And I'm going to zoom in here on walking, for instance. And on the left-hand side, it's reduction in all-cause mortality. Said another way, just it helps you be healthier and live a little bit longer. And if you walk for 5 hours a week consistently, it drops all-cause mortality by 0.2 or 20%. It's a huge improvement just by a little bit. It still is helpful the more you do it, but you get even just a little dose is amazing. And
Mm.
everybody can walk, hopefully in some way, shape, or form, potentially climb stairs if we have access to stairs. Uh, Climbing stairs, taking the stairs a couple times instead of an elevator, extremely impactful. Weightlifting can be very helpful and even in small doses. Playing tennis, even jogging, even like a light jog for 2.5 hours a week, reduces all-cause mortality. But what shocked me the most was just how a little bit of walking can have such a dramatic increase in overall fitness and well-being. So this is kind of a neat study that was done. So a little bit goes a long way, and consistency there is key. And in addition, there we go, got that zoom back out. Once
That's a
we
great
have,
chart, Grant. That's a great chart,
thank you.
because some of these, right? I mean, swimming, that's hard to have access. Maybe we don't play, don't know how to play tennis. Um, rowing. How do I do that? But bicycling. But I'll tell you, like you said, just walking. I guess it sort of points because my wife keeps track of all of her steps, and I think it's kind of a nuisance.
Hmm.
And because she's always boasting about how many steps she walked, and I just walk. I walk just as much because we walk together. But I'm really like blown away by this chart because it just takes so little to get such a big impact. That's the message I'm getting here,
Yes,
and maybe counting steps isn't a bad idea, right? I don't know what 5 hours of walking, how many steps that is, but that seems like a very reasonable amount, uh, you know,
absolutely.
to do in a week. So that's a great slide. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the neat thing with some of the fitness bands nowadays is they kind of gamify it a little bit. So if counting steps means you're more likely to, achieve this, then great. And there's lots of wonderful wearables and stuff out there. But
Right.
yeah, sometimes I don't know. I focus on the data a little bit and lose sight. Focus on a tree, lose sight of the forest. Sometimes it's just, do it consistently, and that's going to be the biggest thing. I do see Terry has a raised hand. Hi, Terry.
Yeah, hey Grant, quick question for you on that chart. I'm looking at the jogging section, and am I reading that right? It looks like the longer you go, the worse it gets.
Yes. Yeah.
But
So
the running, you can run as opposed to jogging, and it improves.
yes, it's
What
really interesting. So
what's
the
the explanation there? What you think?
So yeah, the exercise researcher that put this out comment a little bit on that. So the running is specifically like a sprint. So we're talking about an all out above 85% effort type of a sprint. And they tie it a little bit to if you think of caveman times, we migrated and we walked and we moved around, or we had to sprint for our lives. But the jogging, this like medium intensity, it's not high enough. It's not cardiovascularly high enough to be in zone 405, where it improves our anaerobic. And then it's not low enough where it improves our aerobic. Jogging is right in the middle, and it does a lot of damage uh, per unit of time more than walking or running does. So there's this weird thing of if you jog a ton, you actually are more likely to die. There's an increased risk of colorectal cancer in joggers. It's really weird. But yeah, it is one of those anomalies that the research spit out that I think is kind of interesting. I was surprised too with swimming. You swim a little bit and it's fine, but you swim a lot more and it actually increases your morbidity risk. So yeah, just an interesting data point.
Well, I had my last jog today, it looks like.
Yeah, so you do it like 5 hours. So, if you get one of these watches that track your heart rate, if you're doing zone two, like walking would be zone one, zone two heart rate, if you're into heart rate zones, that's great. Running is, zone 4 to 5. Jogging would be like a zone three, consistent zone three exercise done in compounding over time. Yeah, increases all cause
Hmm,
morbidity. Yeah.
interesting.
hmm So we are what we eat. Let food be thy medicine, medicine be thy food. We all know food is very important. There are 3 hour long podcasts on nutrition, multiple part, movies on nutrition. I have one slide on nutrition here. I'm not going to dive into this topic because it's a very complicated topic. Everybody's diet is very different specific needs to the individual. So I will say with a caveat, consult with your doctor and a nutritionist, but generally, I like the data, I like the research, and what you see research indicates is the Mediterranean diet tends to be at least clinically one of the more proven diets to decrease inflammation, increase longevity, increase wellness. And the Mediterranean diet is just a fancy way of saying generally healthy oils like olive oil, fatty fish, leafy greens, berries, nuts, seeds. Avoiding things that come in a package, avoiding processed food, and avoiding carbs. If you can keep it simple to say, you know what, I'm going to eat meat, fish, greens, fruits, vegetables, and nuts, and you use that as your primary source, you'll get a more diverse nutrition palette, more phytonutrients, which can help. Nuts and seeds are kind of an interesting thing too because they have little micronutrients like magnesium, which really helps our sleep and our mood. So in general, I would say point you towards the Mediterranean diet, but it's not necessarily a diet rather than a lifestyle, a consistent habit, things we want to do in a continuous manner. So this is not a crash course where we're going to try to lose weight. It's just shifting what we eat, which can be really difficult. I have an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old, and sometimes they don't want to eat salmon. And so now I got to cook for them. And maybe you don't feel like cooking sometimes and you just want to go out to eat. And nutrition's hard. It's hard. Honestly, I feel like tackling exercise hygiene or some of those sleep tips are a little bit more approachable sometimes, but food can be so impactful in our lives. One interesting thing I did want to call out. Um, the science is rapidly developing around the link to our gut, our stomach, and our brain. You ever know where you get like they say you get a gut feeling or you get a gut instinct, a gut intuition? It turns out that there's a bunch of bacteria. Uh, I could be wrong here, but trillions, it's a lot of bacteria in our gut. And what you feed those bacteria changes which ones show up. If you feed them a lot of sugars, some bacteria show up. If you feed more fiber and leafy greens, other bacteria show up. And these bacteria send information up to our brain through our main vagus nerve, it's called. It's just a nerve that connects our stomach to our mind. It's super interesting that the science is really starting to understand that our stomach is connected to our mind and our emotions. Amazing stuff that these little microorganisms are impacting the way we think. But the number one thing that they're finding is most people don't have enough fiber in their diet to feed the healthy gut bacteria. And there's been several studies, these are very new, I'm talking about within the past maybe year at most, that are showing that increase in fiber decreases symptoms of depression and anxiety and improves mood. Just taking fiber because we're feeding the healthy bacteria and getting rid of some of the other non as helpful bacteria that feed off of sugar and everything. What is fiber? Fiber would be commonly found in, say, whole grains. If we're gluten intolerant, we could get it in leafy greens. We can get it in flaxseed. You can get it in some probiotics. Metamucil would be a fiber, but consistently getting fiber has been one of the newer scientific developments out there for helping our overall wellness. And they found that the average American diet is extremely lacking in fiber. So if you want to go down that journey, Google brain gut bacteria link and then Google fiber and start learning more. It's just fascinating stuff. If we eat more fiber, and if we're moving more, we need to make sure that we're hydrated. Hydration is so important. There's been some debate around exactly how much hydration we need, but about half your body weight in ounces a day. If you're 180 pounds, 90 ounces, about 11 cups. To be a little bit crude, if you look at your pee, if it's the color of lemonade, you're probably properly hydrated. If it's darker than that, you're dehydrated and you need to drink. If it's lighter than that, you're overhydrated. And yes, there is such thing as too much water. You can die from drinking too much water, as some of you probably are aware. We want to try to drink water in the morning. Push our coffee out. Love a good cup of coffee. Love an Americano myself. We want to try to push our coffee out at least 45 minutes past wake time. That will actually help with our sleep and our circadian rhythm too. Coffee covers up one of the receptors that senses sleepiness. And when we drink coffee too early, right after we wake up, without getting too scientific here, the systems that make all our sleepiness and awakeness work aren't fully functioning yet. And so the coffee doesn't necessarily have the same impact. You'd be better off drinking water, perhaps with like a little pinch of salt in it earlier on, and then pushing coffee 45 minutes later. If anybody on this webinar has ever felt like the crash in the afternoon and the need to drink more caffeine later on, try pushing coffee 45 minutes past wake time. It can really help. Drinking herbal teas, sparkling water can be a great way to supplement too if you don't like plain water. So we've talked a little bit about the body, but we can't forget about the mind. Very powerful. And all credit to a man named Tony Robbins for this particular exercise. I'm going to walk through everyone a quick exercise. And this is if you're live on the webinar today or if you're watching this recording. And we're talking about how powerful our mind can be. So what I want everyone to do right now is look around your room for anything that's brown. So go ahead and look to your left, look to your right, up, down, wherever. Find the brown things in your room. Now, humor me here. Go ahead and close your eyes. How many things are red in your room? And a couple people are chuckling. I can see really hard. You can open your eyes now. Really hard to remember how many red things there were because we were looking for the brown things. Well, now look around. Look at all the red things. And you see more red things now that I'm telling you to look for red things. Mm-hmm. And what's going on, this is a very simplistic explanation, but it just highlights how our brain is looking for what we tell it to look for. It's trying to confirm our world belief. Henry Ford had a very famous phrase, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. If you're looking for brown, you're going to find brown. If you're looking for red, you're going to find red. Even so much so, I bet you that some of you, when you were looking for brown, saw something that was maybe tan or beige and counted it as brown, or when you were looking for something that was red, you maybe saw something that was maroon or dark pink and counted it as a red. Our brain seeks out what we tell it is important. And being aware that our mind does this can be a great first step in shifting our outlook in life, shifting how we define ourselves. We can't necessarily outthink grief. I'm not trying to say we can just use our mind to not grieve anymore, but rather just be cognizant of the labels we have and the biases we have and know that our brain is reinforcing that. And one way that we can help our mind shift and be healthier and improve is this practice called gratitude. And gratitude helps boost a couple of the feel-good chemicals in our brain, dopamine and serotonin. Those are the same chemicals that some antidepressants try to influence and boost. And being and practicing gratitude over time can help strengthen those neural pathways to make it easier for you to be grateful. And gratitude isn't just looking on the bright side. It's not just putting on rose-colored glasses or being Pollyanna about this. Um, Being grateful and finding things that are grateful can coexist with grief and does coexist with grief. They are not opposites. You can be grateful for something and also be grieving the loss of your wife. Research shows that gratitude can help manage grief. It can even do crazy things like practicing gratitude consistently for 2 weeks has shown to drop blood pressure. Practicing gratitude, this was a study over 1 month, had a greater impact on depression and anxiety than antidepressant medications. Practicing gratitude boosts our white blood cell count. It boosts our immune system. Wild stuff. So what is a gratitude practice? Well, I'm going to take one moment with you here, and you are invited to close your eyes if you want, or you can keep them open. No pressure on this one. You just try this. So I want you to think about today, or if you need to go a little bit longer, the past couple of days. Is there one thing that wasn't terrible? You don't have to share it. Just sit with that. Could be the sun's out today and it felt warm and it was really nice to feel that warmth. Could be that it's springtime and you hear the birds chirping and there's flowers. Could be you went to the grocery store and somebody said hi to you and it was just nice to get acknowledgement. Could even be you're trying to make it to some appointment and that stoplight stayed green just a little bit longer and you made it and you got to your appointment on time. Can be even simple things like, you know what? I really like my comfy chair. It's really relaxing to come home and sit in that. And gratitude, I think a lot of times men like to think about it as an intellectual exercise, like a crossword puzzle, where we fill the blank in. You know, what are you grateful for? Okay, I'm grateful for one, two, these things. Okay, what's next? I've done it. True gratitude practice should be feeling the feelings of gratitude. So feel that warmth on your skin from the sun, or remember the sound of that person saying hello that made you feel welcome, or remembering where you're like, yes, the light stayed green, I made the light, or whatever that little moment of joy is. The grandkid smiles at you. Your kid scores a goal in soccer and you feel proud for them. Remembering that emotion and reliving that and doing that consistently can have profound impacts on your overall well-being. Uh, it doesn't, of all the things I mentioned, um, to be honest with you, like sleep can be difficult to change. It can be an uphill battle. Changing diet's tough. Movement, while approachable, may seem overwhelming to some people. But gratitude journaling can literally just be, at the end of the day, think, what's one thing that wasn't so bad today? What's one thing that thrilled me, delighted me, I enjoyed, made some of the grayness or weariness of the world fade for just a second? Could even be seeing that thing that sparked that moment, that memory of your spouse, where you remember something positive about them, that good time you had. You're grateful for the time you had with them. And remembering those grateful moments can be huge in impacting our overall health, well-being. Like I said, lower blood pressure, better immune system, better emotional regulation, general overall well-being and happiness boosts. Gratitude practices are a wonderful way. How would this look practically? You can take a notebook or a journal, and you literally can just ask yourself that one question: what wasn't so terrible, or what am I grateful for? There are so many wonderful resources online if you're interested in gratitude journaling that can give you prompts. It can be like, what's one thing that I'm grateful for my health? What's one grateful thing for my family? What's thing I'm grateful for? And it can give you some prompts and give you some ideas if you need some of those too. So gratitude journaling, super underrated as far as health and wellness goes, in my opinion, on the impact that it can have. Being cognizant of time here, I did put together some additional concepts before we wrap up, just to keep in mind that I just couldn't leave off. First and foremost, social connection. They've done this happiness study. I believe it's Harvard has followed these babies throughout their entire life. The number one predictor of living a longer, healthy, happier life was social connection. The more social connections that you had, the higher the probability that you're going to be healthier, live a longer life, and be happier. Social connection is so huge, which is why groups like this are so important. Loneliness, this is so shocking to me. Loneliness has the same health risk as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It reduces our life and longevity and our happiness and our healthiness as much as smoking 15 cigarettes a day if we're lonely. And frankly, I think honestly that men are at the most risk in this group, just because when we lose our wife, we may get disconnected from our friend group and from our social network. I thought this was kind of an interesting statistic that wives are married men view their wives generally about 60 to 64% of them say that their wife is their best friend. Only about 1/3 to maybe a half of married women say their husband is their best friend. So when we lose our wife, about 2/3 of us lose our best friend, and then also maybe disconnected from social circles. And so it is a hugely underrated impact, I think, is just the social isolation. So being aware that even small methods of staying involved, whether that's a church group, a social group, a club, chess club, or some other hobby, reading club, jogging, biking, groups like this, being involved in some group, congratulations to those who are on this call today and who are watching this webinar, and taking that step can be very important. For men in particular, alcohol abuse can be something that needs to be watched, and it is something that rises amongst widowed men. And it makes sense because, right, alcohol can numb the pain and fill the quiet evenings, and it's acceptable as a way to socialize and everything. But alcohol really works against you when we're going through grief. It disrupts our sleep. It increases depression. It's a depressant itself. It raises inflammation. It does exactly the opposite of what we want to be doing when we want to take care of ourselves. And so the question to ask yourself, is your drinking really helping, or is it helping you avoid what's really there? So be very cautious around alcohol, and generally, if possible, avoid alcohol. And don't be afraid to ask for help. Men often, in particular, we're less likely to want to be a burden. People have their own problems. We can handle this. And again, relying upon groups like this are super important in helping rebuild community and some scaffolding and some framework. If we can then take those friends and do positive things like a gratitude practice or a walk a day, or great, staying hydrated, or even a cup of coffee and just chatting can be extremely helpful. And remember, accepting help from others, it's not weakness, it's wisdom. So many people ask, how can I help? And one thing that I've found, so I've coached so many widows and widowers now and been a part of so many grief groups, is when you're put on the spot and somebody approaches you and says, hey, what can I help out with? People have a really hard time talking about death and grief and loss in our society. They don't know the words to say. And so they'll just blankly say, what can I help out with? Most people, our natural response is, no, it's okay. I'm good. Thank you. I appreciate that. Oh, that's so kind. What I would challenge you to do, one unique thing that I've heard from several, again, widows and widowers that has helped, is when you are alone and you're by yourself and you think, oh, I really need somebody to grab some salt from my water softener, or, oh, I really need help with this particular lawn thing, or, it'd be nice to have somebody to go to walk with. Jot that down in a book. And then when you get that question, hey, what can I help with? Say, you know what? I was on this webinar and this guy named Grant said I should jot down my lists so that way I could figure out and remember when I'm put on the spot. Here's a list. what on this list would you like to help me with? And then people can pick, they want to help, but they just don't know how to. So I found writing down that list is a great way. And then that way, when you're put on the spot, sometimes, heck, I forget what's on my to-do list, when I'm put on the spot. So having it written down can be great, especially since grief induces something called widow or widower's fog, where our ability to remember things clearly diminishes a little bit for 12, 18 months. It depends upon many different factors. So writing things down can be extremely helpful for this. And wrapping it up, last but not least here, we will never be the same. We cannot go back to our lives when we had our life. We can't get back to something, but we can get to something different. There can be a different normal, a newer normal, a different purpose, a new meaning. And finding purpose and meaning, if you haven't read Viktor Frankl's book, A Man's Search for Meaning, wonderful book. This was a guy, in case you're unfamiliar with him, who survived the Holocaust. And, he had an interesting phrase. It said, those who have a why can bear almost any how. And in finding some sort of new purpose or new meaning in your life, whether that is volunteering with a local charity or school, giving back, helping others, what talents you have, what gifts you have, giving that back to the community can be extremely powerful in helping you with your grief journey and helping you with your overall well-being. It doesn't have to be big. It can be something that just depends upon you showing up. There's an interesting thing. This author in Minnesota called Dan Buettner, I think, wrote this thing called Blue Zones, where he studied areas where people live longer, that have the most centenarians. People live at least 100 years old. And one of the areas is this island in Japan, Okinawa Island. And Okinawans have a job basically their entire lives. You'll see 80-year-old, 90-year-old potters or weavers or some community involvement. They don't have this concept of retirement here where you just stop working. And being involved in something keeps your sense of community, keeps you active, keeps your mind sharp. So having some sort of involvement, there's tons of data and science to back it up that it's very powerful in your overall well-being. So small choices, they don't necessarily fix your grief, but they can make it more survivable. And caring for yourself, it's not ignoring your grief. It's not in any way, shape, or form detrimental to the memory of your spouse that you lost, but it's caring for yourself. It's staying in the fight. It's making your grief journey more bearable and allow you to be the better version you and be there for your loved ones, whether that's kids, grandkids, aunts, uncles, families, friends that are still around that you can be here for and have wonderful impact on. No pressure. There's no timeline. Just steady, consistent effort. And thank you so much for showing up. That really counts. And with that, that's all I have for you this evening. And I'm happy to hear any questions anyone has at this time.
Grant, you mentioned magnesium, and I was reminded that when I was working with I got to a point where I needed to consult with a real nutritionist because my weight was really ballooning, and I just wasn't taking care of myself, and I wasn't grieving. I just wasn't taking care of myself, and they prescribed a whole lot of different things for me. One was a whole lot more fiber.
Yeah.
To your point, one was a whole lot more hydration. They forced me to drink all kinds of stuff. But there was all kinds of ointments. And one of the ointments was magnesium.
Mm-hmm.
And they had me put that magnesium ointment between my toes. And that was so I would sleep better.
Yep.
And you had mentioned magnesium, and it reminded me, I knew why I was doing it, but I just thought that was so strange because I'd never heard of anybody slicking in magnesium between your toes to go to bed. But I got to tell you, I lost 50 pounds and, I've kept it off and I feel like $1 million. I don't put any more magnesium between my toes, but losing that weight, right, and getting a better diet, exercise, walking, all of those things that you mentioned, I sleep great. I don't need that magnesium, but there really is a lot of science behind everything that you shared tonight. And, as you said, you can be overwhelmed by looking at it all, but just starting with the sleep, as you said, and getting your sleep so you wake up feeling refreshed, you can tackle anything if you're feeling
Yeah.
refreshed. But who wants to tackle anything if you haven't slept all night? So
Yeah.
I think you're right, spot on to say start there, one thing, and I think that routine piece is huge. And I'd be interested if guys have comments on routines that they have
It
found for
would be, I'd be
themselves that they
remiss
could share
to.
with others.
Melatonin gets a lot of praise in the sleep world, but melatonin actually doesn't have a lot of clinical research to back it up, versus magnesium really does as far as improving sleep. But one thing I promised too is I almost forgot, I don't know how I could have in this world of AI. If anybody feels overwhelmed about anything here, like let's say, you know what, I really want to walk, but I don't know where to get started. AI could be a wonderful tool. So I have Claude up here. I have my AI, and let's say I'm inactive and really want to start walking 10 minutes a day. What are some tips that I can use to start my journey? What are some schedules I can have to make it you don't even have to use proper grammar here, successful. Some typos in there even and everything, and you can hit enter. And this is just so cool nowadays. Obviously, don't believe everything AI says, no matter what, but it can give you some really helpful tips. And here's its schedule that I can now do. Walk, rest, 10 minutes, 4 days, 5 days, 12 minutes, build up over time. And right there, you have a fitness coach in your back pocket. So that's just one small example that AI can be super useful for, and you can trust it for building a walk schedule, not super high risky stuff there. So, Howard, yeah, you had a hand raise.
Yeah, talking about routine. I lost my wife about 6 months before COVID hit, and I was just sort of starting to be able to see around the grief a little bit, and then everything closed down. And I wonder if anyone else uh, had that experience where you lose a spouse and then COVID hit and you lose everything else. And I think that was that was just like a double whammy for me. And I just wondered if anyone else had something similar like that. I think it speaks to what you were saying, Grant, about the importance of a routine and how that can keep us anchored when we're being just in this tornado of the emotions of grief.
Anyone else experience COVID was such I hope hopefully right a one off. We'll never have to experience that again. But for those that lost before or during, even after, because it lasted for really a couple of years, I can't imagine. It was bad enough, and then COVID. Yeah, great to see you here, and I think that's a testament to perseverance. Right, you got through that, and appreciate that, Howard. And I don't know anybody else have to deal with what we call compound losses. You don't normally think of COVID as a compound loss, but it really was. How, Richard?
I think in some of our cases, when the death is sudden rather than a long prolonged illness, you don't have don't have time to prepare. routines and think about that, you're just all of a sudden awash and difficult to find the ground. But I do remember my instinct was to do what you were saying, Grant, which was, uh, or somebody said, to kind of treat my grief as if it was a job, a new job. And that's easy for me to do. I've done that all my life, is to treat things like a project or a job, attach a schedule to it, a budget to it, and get it done. And I had to do that in my case because my wife died over a weekend. And so I really wasn't prepared at all for all the plans that had to be made and things that had to be done in the next. And we had a hurricane that week, and then we had two birthdays the next week. Then we had Thanksgiving the next week, and then the Christmas and New Year's. And so there wasn't time to do anything except react. But eventually, I did find routine meeting with men at church on a regular basis. And they became a source of, or a place where it was safe for me to share my problems, the difficulties catching up with this freight train that just had passed through my bedroom. And so I really would encourage that socialization with a group of people you trust regularly, and I mean weekly. And I just think that was the thing that kept me afloat.
Thanks for sharing, Richard. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Terry?
Can't hear
You're
you.
muted, Terry.
Thanks. Grant, thanks for being here, and thank you for that presentation.
Mm-hmm.
When I've looked online before for like grief training or grief counsel or certification, it seems like there's multiple choices there. Tell me about the certified grief educator and how you picked that one as for you.
That's a great question. That's David Kessler's. So if you're on grief.com, a gentleman by the name of David Kessler, who has written a couple different books on grief. He also studied with Diane Kubler-Ross, who talked about the different stages of grief. So that you are correct. There are many different ones. That course was very impactful. A lot of interesting scientific backup, a lot of study of the very different kinds of grief: loss of a spouse, loss of a child, compound loss, sudden loss versus ongoing medical, even a little bit of like loss of pets and some other things too. So a whole bunch of different aspects of grief. A very worthwhile program. And for me, I think it just helped broaden my understanding of how different grief styles impacts and different grief events impact people differently. And that way, when I'm speaking to different groups or working with people, whether you're leading small groups, whether you're speaking online, or if you want to start a local grief group, it just gives you a lot better insight if you want to do that work. So yeah, 2 thumbs up for me on that. Definitely worth the money and the time and the effort. Yeah.
Well, that brings us, unless there's other questions, that brings us right to the time we allotted tonight. Any final comments? Okay, guys. Well,
I'll just echo saying thank you very much, Grant. It was a really, really great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.
Appreciate that. Thanks, guys. Again, I want to thank Grant for being here. I want to thank you guys for stepping out and asking questions and sharing. It's not always easy. We make this a safe place, but saying it and believing it, right, could be two different things. So appreciate you sharing. It's a lot to ask, but you do it. You show up every month and you engage, and that's what this is for. So really appreciate you taking it seriously. You're why you're the reason. You're the reason we do this, and so I appreciate that you're getting something out of it. I want to thank Grant again. It's a good friend and just a guy I respect the heck out of, and I really appreciate him taking time out of his schedule. I think he was supposed to be at soccer tonight with his two daughters, so he's with us instead, and really want to thank Grant for doing that with us. Just a reminder, we have these events every month. Try to bring in different speakers, different topics on a monthly basis. And for one reason is for this, to have a safe place to talk about stuff that we need to talk about, that you need to talk about, you need answers to. So your questions. So that's why we do this. So those events are published on the website and in the monthly newsletter. If you're not getting the newsletter, please sign up. I think most members are. But it's a monthly newsletter that comes out just for you, and it always highlights what's coming up in the upcoming month. You're going to receive a brief survey by email tomorrow, as well as the link to the recording. If you want to go back and see anything that Grant talked about tonight, that'll be in the recording. And we'll be sharing that with you as well. And until then, I just take good care of yourselves. I expect you to, after you turn off here, you go out and do a little bit of walking. And a little bit of hydrating and get a good night's sleep tonight. That'd be a good start tonight, right? So
sure not going to go jog, that's for sure.
Not going to jog. No.
Not going to go jogging.
Done with jogging.
You were going to, then you saw the chart. So
Yeah, I'm a cyclist, and I saw how sharp that curve was, and that was real. That was ugh. That's kind of ugly. I wonder if it's because you're spending more time on roads.
It's more dangerous. Yeah,
that's an interesting thought.
yeah. Well, guys, thanks. Have a great night. We'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Grant.
Thank you for doing it.